Get ready for a chilling deep dive. You shared a story about a home invasion, and it's unlike anything we've ever seen.
Yeah.
It involves a family, security cameras, and some really unsettling details that left us with more questions than answers. It seems to be a first-hand account
Right.
posted online. Is this a chilling true story, an elaborate internet hoax, or something else entirely?
Well, let's find out.
Let's examine the evidence, analyze the events, and see what conclusions we can draw.
Exactly. What strikes me right away is how this account starts with a pretty familiar scenario, a father checking in on his family through a baby monitor. And,
Right.
it kind of lulls you into this sense of normalcy, right?
Yeah.
Before things take a very dark turn.
Right. The husband, he's a nurse working the night shift. He's checking his son's monitor, remotely. And he sees his wife and son just sitting motionless on the bed, staring blankly at the camera. It's already unsettling, but then he tries calling his wife.
And she answers sounding like she was fast asleep, but on camera, she's wide awake. So,
This discrepancy, right, immediately introduces this possibility that something is wrong.
right.
It's not just the blank stares.
Yeah.
It's the fact that it's so incongruous with their behavior.
Right.
And that's where the doubt starts to creep in.
And when he tells his wife what he's seeing, she's terrified, grabs their son and flees to her parents' house, even using prearranged code words to confirm their identities over the phone.
That detail really stood out to me. The use of code words suggests a pre-existing anxiety, like fear of something that could potentially, I don't know, impersonate them or something. It's as if, on some level, they were already prepared for the possibility of encountering something not quite human.
Which leads us to the not family concept.
Right.
The husband and wife start referring to the figures on the camera as not wife and not son because they look identical, but their behavior is completely off.
Yeah.
Do you think this points to a specific type of entity? I mean, are we talking duplicates, doppelgängers, or something else entirely? It's hard to say for sure, but the idea of something mimicking human form, that's a recurring theme. In folklore, in science fiction, we have tales of changelings, doppelgängers, even body snatchers. What's interesting here is the apparent lack of motive. Like, if these beings are capable of perfectly replicating human behavior, why simply sit in a house for days?
It's true. The lack of a clear objective makes their actions even more unnerving. The husband's coworker, a believer in the paranormal, even accompanies him back to the house. They hear a noise and flee, further convinced that something is terribly wrong.
The coworker's presence is an interesting element because his belief in the paranormal almost lends credence to the husband's fears, right? It's like having someone else validate the reality of the situation,
Right.
which is likely why the husband decides to involve the police.
Right. He wants to show the police the live camera feed as proof that this isn't a normal break-in. But imagine being those officers arriving at a seemingly normal house, only to be confronted with this live feed of what appears to be the family just sitting there, unmoving.
I mean, the police officer's initial skepticism is understandable, right? I mean, they're trained to deal with tangible threats, not something out of a horror movie. But even their skepticism turns to cautious curiosity when they see the live feed. They even throw a rock at the window just to confirm that it's not a recording.
And then, as they enter the house, the camera cuts out. We're left with only audio, the sounds of a struggle, gunshots, and then this absolutely chilling demonic howl.
Oh, wow.
The visceral shift from the unsettling stillness to just outright chaos and violence.
Yeah, the demonic howl is a particularly effective detail because it shatters any remaining hope that this might be a mundane explanation. It just injects a supernatural element into the story, pushing it firmly into the realm of the horrific and unknown.
And what they discover inside is truly gruesome. The officers are dead, their bodies bearing horrific injuries. Then there's not wife and not son, both riddled with bullets. But there's one detail that really sets them apart. Their blood is yellow.
The yellow blood immediately throws our understanding of biology into question. It's a detail often associated with insect-like creatures in science fiction. And it instantly signals that these beings are not human,
Right.
despite their outward appearance.
It's a detail that sticks with you, a visceral reminder that we're dealing with something truly alien. But the story takes an even darker turn. As the husband leaves his son's room, he encounters not himself.
The introduction of not himself is a brilliant escalation because it suggests that anyone is susceptible to being replaced, right?
Right.
Taking the concept of this not family to its most terrifying extreme.
Right.
And this encounter forces the husband into a desperate fight for survival.
He shoots not himself in self-defense, using his son's rifle, and collapses from his wounds. More police arrive, and it's utter chaos.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to know what they've stumbled upon. But amidst the confusion, there's one detail that really grabbed my attention.
You're referring to the coroner's report, right? The
Yes,
cryptic message the husband receives about the not family's strange anatomy.
exactly. He describes them as having the same organs as humans, but arranged differently, and their internal anatomy is green and yellow instead of the usual reds and pinks.
Wow.
It's as if their biology is a twisted mockery of our own.
It adds this layer of scientific intrigue to the horror. The coroner even speculates that they might be extraterrestrial, which raises even more questions.
Right.
If they are aliens, why choose this family?
Right.
Why stay in their home for days doing seemingly nothing?
Right.
It doesn't fit any typical alien invasion narrative.
It's that very incongruity that makes so unsettling. And in the end, the family is forced to abandon their home, unable to shake the feeling that something is still wrong. The government's involvement only deepens the mystery.
Their decision to abandon their home speaks volumes about the trauma they endured.
Right.
Even if the Knott family is gone, the sense of violation, the feeling that their safe space has been corrupted, lingers.
It's a chilling reminder that sometimes there are no easy answers. We're left with questions, doubts, and a profound sense of unease.
Welcome back to the deep dive. As we continue examining this account, I think it's crucial to shift our focus from the events themselves to the psychological impact on the family, right? The terror they endured, the violation of their home, the loss of their sense of security. It's hard to grasp the magnitude of that trauma.
Absolutely. The idea of your loved ones being replaced by something alien, something that looks and sounds like them, but it's fundamentally different. It's a primal fear that strikes at the very core of our identity and belonging.
A nightmare scenario. Imagine, right, looking at your spouse, your child, and knowing deep down that it's not them, that something else has taken their place. That's got to shake the very foundation of your reality.
And it's not just the fear of the unknown, it's the psychological torture of the not family. Just sitting there for days staring blankly. That passive aggression, that silent invasion, it must have been agonizing.
Exactly. That stillness, that lack of any discernible motive, that's what truly amplifies the horror. It preys on the family's uncertainty and just ratchets up the tension to an almost unbearable level. The husband is caught in this terrifying limbo, unable to fully comprehend what's happening, yet forced to make life-altering decisions.
And speaking of decisions, let's talk about the husband's choice to involve the police.
Hmm.
I can't help but wonder if, fleeing the scene, as terrifying as it was, actually made the situation worse. By leaving the house, the Knott family was allowed to remain undisturbed, perhaps even emboldened by it.
It's an interesting point. I mean, it's easy to judge the family's actions in hindsight. They were operating under immense stress and fear, but you raise a valid question. Could their decision to flee have inadvertently escalated the situation? Did it provide the Knott family with an opportunity to, I don't know, further establish their presence?
Definitely something to consider. But let's talk about the husband's mental state. Not only is he dealing with the trauma of the invasion itself, but also the immense guilt of having killed these not family members, right? Even though he knows they weren't his real wife and son, the act of taking a life, especially lives that so closely resembled his loved ones, must have been incredibly traumatic.
Absolutely. He's grappling with a complex moral dilemma. On one hand, he's acting in self-defense, protecting himself and potentially others from a perceived threat. But on the other hand, he's forced to make a life-or-death decision based on incomplete information. The psychological burden of that responsibility, coupled with the visual similarity of the Knott family to his actual family, it's got to be immense.
And there's that chilling detail in the account where he hesitates before shooting not wife. Even though he intellectually understands that it's not her, there's still a flicker of recognition, a lingering emotional bond that complicates the situation even further.
That moment highlights the profound power of human connection. Even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, the husband's love for his wife, that deeply ingrained emotional connection, it almost overrides his rational understanding of the situation.
Heartbreaking and terrifying. But let's zoom out for a moment and consider the larger implications of this story. If these beings are capable of seamlessly integrating themselves into our lives, replicating our appearances and behaviors so convincingly, It raises some unsettling questions about the nature of reality. Could there be more of them out there, undetected, living among us?
The very thought is enough to send chills down your spine, isn't it? It forces us to question everything we think we know about the world. The possibility, however remote, that our reality could be so easily infiltrated, deeply unsettling. It's a theme explored in many works of science fiction. The idea of a hidden world, existing just beneath the surface of our own that we are blissfully unaware of.
And the government's involvement only adds fuel to that fire. The cryptic message from the coroner, the secrecy surrounding the case, it all hints at a larger conspiracy, a deliberate attempt to suppress information.
You're right. The lack of transparency from authorities feeds into our inherent distrust of those in power. It plays on our fears that there are things happening behind closed doors, truths being hidden from us, for our own protection. Whether or not there is an actual cover-up in this case, the very idea of it taps into a deep-seated anxiety about control and who holds it.
It leaves us, the listeners, in a very precarious position.
Hmm.
We're presented with this chilling account, these unsettling details, and yet we're left to grapple with the unknown, to draw our own conclusions from the fragments of information available.
And that, I think, is the most enduring psychological impact of this story. It's not just the fear of the unknown, but the erosion of our sense of certainty, of the stability of our own reality. It forces us to confront the possibility that there are things in this world operating just beyond our perception that we may never fully understand.
It's a chilling reminder of just how vulnerable we are, how easily our sense of security can be shattered. But on that unsettling note, I think it's time to take a break and gather our thoughts. We'll return in part 3 to delve into the philosophical implications of this encounter, what it means for our understanding of identity, the self, and the very nature of existence. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. As we reach the final part of our exploration into this home invasion account, I find myself grappling with the philosophical questions it raises. If these beings can so perfectly replicate human form and behavior, what does that say about our own identity? What truly makes us?
That's a question that has haunted philosophers for centuries, and this story brings it into sharp, terrifying focus. If our physical forms, our memories, even our personalities can be duplicated, what then defines our uniqueness? What constitutes the essence of being human?
It's almost as if this account challenges the very notion of a soul, of something intangible that sets us apart from mere biological machines. If a perfect copy can be created, does that diminish the original in any way?
That's a deeply unsettling thought, isn't it? It forces us to confront the possibility that what we perceive as ourself might be more fragile, more malleable than we'd like to believe. And if something can create a perfect copy of us down to our deepest desires and fears, what's to stop it from manipulating us, controlling our thoughts and actions?
That's a chilling thought, especially in our increasingly digital age. We're constantly sharing information about ourselves online, creating these incredibly detailed digital footprints. Could this data, in the wrong hands, be used to create something akin to the Knot family in this story?
It's not a question we can simply dismiss. Think about the advancements in artificial intelligence, in machine learning. We're rapidly approaching a point where technology can not only mimic but predict human behavior with startling accuracy. The line between the physical and digital is blurring. And as we become more reliant on technology, we become more vulnerable to its potential misuse.
This story almost serves as a warning then, urging us to be mindful of the information we share and the power we cede to those who control our digital lives.
Precisely. But beyond the technological implications, this encounter also throws into question our understanding of reality itself. If our senses can be deceived so completely, if what we perceive as real can be so easily manipulated, how can we be sure of anything?
That cuts to the very core of how we know what we know. It's almost an assault on the foundations of our knowledge. It forces us to confront the possibility that our understanding of the world might be fundamentally flawed.
Exactly. This account, whether fictional or not, has the power to destabilize our sense of truth. It makes us reevaluate our sources of information, our methods of verification. Suddenly, even the most basic assumptions we hold about the world seem less certain.
And that's where the true horror lies, isn't it? Not just in the violence or the gore, but in that creeping existential dread, the realization that our reality might be built on shifting sand. It's a fear that transcends the boundaries of genre, tapping into a primal human anxiety about the unknown.
It's a fear that's been explored in countless stories, from ancient myths to modern horror films. The idea that things are not what they seem, that there are unseen forces at play, has always held a powerful grip on our imaginations.
So where do we go from here? How do we process this information, this glimpse into a reality that seems both familiar and utterly alien?
I think the first step is to acknowledge the limitations of our own perception. We can't simply rely on our senses, our intuition, to guide us through a world where reality itself can be manipulated. We need to cultivate a healthy skepticism, a willingness to question what we see and hear, to seek out multiple perspectives.
So in a sense, this story, as unsettling as it is, could be seen as a call to critical thinking, to a more discerning approach to the information we consume.
Absolutely. It encourages us to become active participants in shaping our own understanding of the world, rather than passive recipients of whatever narratives are presented to us.
This deep dive has taken us to some dark places, but it's also illuminated some profound truths about the human condition. It's reminded us of our capacity for both love and fear, our vulnerability in the face of the unknown, and our enduring desire to make sense of a world that can often seem senseless. Thanks for joining us on this unsettling but thought-provoking journey. You've been listening to The Deep Dive.
Thanks for listening.